Hey guys, welcome to Grounded Roots Healing. My name is Jason, and this evening I'm going to discuss the day that I stopped being an atheist. I can mark the day. It's complicated, but so I had a spiritual awakening. It started around 2013, and it's the first time I got a glimpse of the ego mind and the conscious mind and the separation between the two of them. Now, it lasted about 6 months where I could consciously do that, and I had made a lot of changes in my life and things were going better, and I was reading like crazy, because even though that had happened to me, I wasn't convinced that there was a God responsible for it. I just thought, well, isn't that an interesting way for the mind to be formed? Just why would there be two minds? Anyway, I read everything you can think of, trying to figure out if there was a God. And it didn't get there, not through books. It just isn't possible. So, and now that I've had all these direct experiences, let's say, I can look back at my life and see where there were direct experiences, but I wasn't open to seeing them for what they were. They were a lot more subtle, and I just wasn't going to see it. So in my opinion, anything from when I was a little kid that I had blocked out to that point, there was no evidence. And I had never seen anything supernatural, let's say, supernatural. So I read the books, and I started to, I was definitely on a spiritual path, but I wasn't getting any closer to an answer. Is there a God? Is there not a God? What is the point of all this? So I have to tell the story of the backstory. I live in this little French village here I did, in Nova Scotia. And it's a very old village. And my wife's grandmother, who is a huge part of our life, a huge part of her life, had grown up in this community the entire time. She never left. She only left once, and it was for my wife. Now, her husband, you can just envision, her name was Almeida, and she was the matriarch of the entire community, essentially, especially the entire extended family of my wife. And her husband had passed away when my wife was very young. And she never remarried. She lived just down the road from us and my wife. And so my wife had spent an ungodly amount of time staying with her, sleeping at her house, because she was just like a little baby a toddler when her grandfather passed. So her grandmother put all her attention into her and her other grandkids as well. But Amanda in particular, because she was at that age when he passed. And I believe they are a twin flame situation. So they're basically the same soul. That's my opinion. But irregardless, they had an extremely strong connection. So as I married into this family, I could do no wrong. Amanda was the the apple of her eye, and anyone she chose was going to be good. So she absolutely adored me. Now, I didn't have a very good childhood, so I didn't get a lot of attention in that way, especially not from grandmothers. When I married into this family, and actually before I even married into this family, she adopted me as her grandson. She didn't come out and say it as much, but I called her what everybody called her, which was Mamar. And now I don't know where it came from, because it's supposed to be Mamère or Mamé, which is a common nanny or grandma, granny. it's a shortened version of ma mère, but she was ma mère. She was the only ma mère. Getting emotional. Okay, so the story's going somewhere, I promise. This little frail old French with a heavy French accent was the most loving human that I've ever met. And she, like I said, Amanda was the apple of her eye, so I could do no wrong. And for whatever reason, she wanted me to go. She made bread every day. You had to get up early to do it. She wanted me to go over with her and learn how to make bread in the morning. So I did, and she was tickled because I did it. She got pictures of me with a chef's hat on, and she thought it was quite amusing. So I was there, but just me and her, making the bread all morning, and then we were having soup. So she had made a soup, and I was there eating lunch with her, and she decided to tell me out of the blue the story. So the story, I have to describe the geography of the community even to make this work, but so there is let's say Mamar's house, a river with a bridge, and then it goes to the ocean, and then the church is over here, and then the road systems are over here. There was a bridge over here, the main road crossed. Now, when we lived there, we lived out on a peninsula, out on the ocean, just up the coast, not far. The kids used to bike there to her house all the time to go see her, even when they were little, because it wasn't very far. It was like maybe a kilometer. And they were doing some repair work. Now, this was back, would have been in the 1940s. It was back when Mamar had her kids, when they were quite young. Her kids were just babies. And they were repairing the bridge. There was a group of men there, and a little boy was with his father. There were several boys. And it was in the winter time, and they were doing repairs on this creosote wooden bridge. And it was frozen, solid. But the current underneath that bridge, I'm getting emotional thinking about this. The current under that bridge kept an open hole right below the bridge because it wouldn't freeze, because it was semi-salt, mostly salty, and it was moving very fast. But the rest of it was all frozen, up and down from that spot. So as they were working on the bridge, the little boy was, I guess, climbing over the edge or something, and he fell. He fell, and obviously he didn't make it. Now, she was telling me the story, and I was nearly in tears as she was telling it to me. And I am again talking about it. So, he obviously drowned. The father was distraught, and the mother lived 2 houses down from Mamar. And this is before telephones and anything. There was probably telephones, but you know what I'm saying. It was a long time ago. There was a lot of horse and carts still. And apparently the priest had ran down from the church and was trying to chop a hole in the ice and couldn't. So they had to actually wait till spring to recover the boy. So when they went to tell the mother, Mamar was describing, she said that I'll never forget it, but the screaming of the mother outside when they told her what had happened is when she found out what had happened. And she was emotional just telling me. Okay. Rough story over. So that stuck with me, obviously. Now, that night, I went back home, trying to forget the story that I'd just been told. And my 2 boys were sitting on the couch, And our youngest boy, well, I was washing dishes. I'll never forget any moment of this entire story. This is how I know, like I can tell the story over and over and over because it's burnt into my brain. That's why I had no doubts after this happened. So for my older boy, he's 6 years older than my youngest, and he had gotten a kayak for his grading, I believe. And actually the youngest boy had one too, and he was about 5 years old, I want to say, maybe 4. He had one too, one of those little ones, but you know, he was really proud of himself to paddle that thing around. So we lived right on the ocean, and the bridge where this thing had happened was over here, but there was a big peninsula, and you could go all the way around up a river mouth and then actually go right under that bridge, and Mamar's house was on that river, a few houses up. So for whatever reason, I was washing dishes, and we were talking about kayaking out in front, and I had mentioned to my oldest boy, you could take your kayak from in front of our house and paddle all the way around the peninsula, go up the river, and go right to Mamar's house. And we were discussing about how you would get there, and he was a little confused, and I said, well, it goes right underneath that bridge, the bridge that goes to your nanny's house. And so he nodded, and my youngest said, as I was washing dishes, a little boy died there, you know. And I wasn't facing him. I had my back to him. He was kind of to the side, but he couldn't see my face. And he just said that at 5 years old. And my jaw almost hit the floor. And I was like, my eyes were darting and racing, and I was like, and then I thought to myself, okay, I got to ask him about this, but I don't want to lead him in any way. So I'm going to let him do the talking. So I put the dishes down that I was doing, and I went over and I asked him, what do you mean? What did you just say? And he said, a little boy died there, you know. He repeated. I said, okay, I heard that this time for sure. And I said, well, how do you know that? And what happened? And he just did this. That's what he did at 5 years old. And I didn't know what to say. Like, I asked him some more questions, and it became very clear that he really did know that a little boy had died there. I still don't know how. You know, I know all of this stuff, but I don't know how he knew it. Is he clairvoyant, claircognizant? Was he the little boy? I don't know. I'm not sure. But after that, I absolutely knew that he knew, because my initial thought was, okay, he heard somebody talking about this. Maybe Mamar had told his grandmother, and she had said it, and he overheard it, because he's a little sneaky kid, and he hears things. But I went and asked them, and they didn't even know the story. She never told anybody the story. She told me the story. That's it. So then I started telling anyone who would listen this entire story. And they were all flabbergasted. The entire family. Nobody had ever heard the story about the little boy. Nobody knew. And I can never unknow it. And I don't know. Maybe I have that little boy in my house now. But this kid, none of our kids had any of that kind of, or at least maybe I just wasn't open to hearing it, but none of them ever said anything like that caught my attention. But our youngest has, since he was able to speak, and until he was about 7 years old. He told us that he chose us. He picked his family before he came here. He also said that he was a blue light. That's what he was before he decided to come into this family. And many, many other things. He said a lot of things. He was a talker. He's very, very much like me. He has the same exact personality. It's like staring in a mirror and arguing with it. But he's an amazing kid. And, you know, after that happened, after the traumatization of learning that story and then hearing it from my son, that this actually happened, I couldn't not believe anymore. I had no idea what extent, and especially I didn't have this kind of knowledge, but I had absolute faith after that point that there was a God. There was at least an afterlife. How else could you explain that? And, you know, I am a firm believer that nothing happens by accident. I know that Mamar was compelled to tell me that story so that he would tell me that, and then that would start this whole process. You know, I didn't have what I call a spiritual awakening after that, but I didn't have any more doubts. I started looking for signs. I started seeing signs. I started seeing my mother, who's passed, come in like random dimes in weird places, and dragonflies doing things that dragonflies don't normally do. And, you know, it opened my eyes at least, and it definitely gave me a taste of what was to come. And I was never the same after that. Never. And I never will be. I mean, it's only getting crazier. So I look forward to finding out how he knew that in the future. And I know I will get the answer at some point, but in the meantime, I still get messages from Mamar and my mother regularly, and very direct messages sometimes. I'll leave it at that. So, like I always say, I hope this video finds you well. I love you all, and we'll see you tomorrow.